I'm Eric Knight.
And I'm Stacy Copeland, and we're the co-owners of Local Leaf, a small business here in Austin, Texas, where we wild harvest Yaupon and make a Yaupon matcha product. We're also the authors of Foraging Texas, and Eric is going to be talking about some other wild edible foods that you can find in your garden this fall.
Yeah, so I really love talking about invasive edible plants because I think it's more, probably a little more ethical and sustainable to be eating plants that kind of grow up wildly in gardens and in waste areas than, you know, trying to go out in native habitat and harvesting things that our native animals are eating. So we really like harvesting invasive plants before we get into native plants. By the way, I wanted to mention when you're harvesting any kind of wild plant, especially invasives, because they often tend to grow in kind of marginal habitats, it's really good to you know, just have some common sense in mind. You don't want to harvest this from the bottom of a ditch along I-35, say. You want to, you know, make sure you're harvesting in a non-polluted area. So if you know, like if you know there's an area that's landscaped and is probably sprayed, you don't want to harvest from there. But if it's from your backyard, you know you don't spray any pesticides, you know, that's a pretty good, safe place to harvest. So one of our favorites here is lamb's quarter. It comes out in spring when it's got the new leaves, and then it's going to seed right now in fall in Austin. And so you can see here it's got the seeds coming out. The scientific genus name is Chenopodium, and that's actually, you might recognize it if you look on the back of like your quinoa packet, it might say Chenopodium. It's the same genus as quinoa that you might buy. So you can eat the seeds, you can strip them off, and you kind of have to break up the chaff to get to the black seeds. But these are edible. And then also, what we normally though is the leaves, like especially in spring and summer, you can pick the leaves off.
It also has a bit of a particular fragrance to it.
Yeah, it has a weird smell. Some people might think it smells, I don't know.
Like feet, maybe?
A little bit like feet.
A little bit
but
like feet?
It doesn't taste like feet.
No.
It tastes pretty good. And you don't, that flavor doesn't really come through when you cook with it. We've made, you know, dips like this. It's kind of like a spinach substitute. We also, probably most commonly, we just throw it into scrambled eggs. You can eat it raw too. It doesn't have the, you know, that flavor either. It's just kind of spinachy. There's other invasive plants that are really common in garden beds, especially kind of a little later into winter and early spring. You've got henbit and chickweed. Cleavers is semi-invasive. So those are really good ones to harvest as well. And you can do all kinds of stuff with them. Like Stacy mentioned, we've got recipes in our book.
We've got this passion flower. You can make a really nice tea with it. And this is Turk's Cap. You can eat the red flowers. They're super sweet. We like to do fun things like put goat cheese inside of them. And we also have these Mexican plums that are out right now this fall.
You know, we really encourage people eating invasive plants kind of as first choices, and then you can, you know, eat native plants also. But really kind of taking advantage of eating the invasive plants over native plants, I think, is really important because it gives our native plants a break. Also, it's really important when you're planning on eating any wild plant to really know for sure you're identifying the right plant. So, you know, best way to learn is to really practice, maybe go on a foraging walk with somebody knowledgeable, or, you know, there are books like ours and there's others to really learn how to identify plants well. You also want to be really sure you know about any really toxic plants that might be in your area. So we have a whole section on that in our book as well.
And we also host foraging walks through our company, Local Leaf, as well.
For Backyard Basics, I'm Eric.
And I'm Stacy. Happy foraging.